Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next Foreman Community Demo. Your host, Ken Gilvin, here as always. And it's going to be a two halves kind of demo today. We've got a small amount of things that have been merged and things to tell you and interesting bits of news. And then because it's a quiet day, we're going to use the second half of our time to look at a bit more detail at one of the proposals that's come in from one of the developers about some new tooling that we might want to do. So this is very much an open discussion about the best way to implement a solution to a particular problem. So we'll do a bit more detail of that when we get to that part, but definitely looking for lots of voices in that. So do be sure to be involved in that part of the show for sure. A reminder how to be involved. We've got our IRC channel, so you can come and talk there, or you can use the YouTube Live. I'm keeping an eye on both, so you're quite welcome to put questions or comments or whatever you want to say in either of those channels, and I will make sure it gets relayed to the right people. So what do we got today? As I said, we got some minor issues, some UX improvements, a little bit of remote execution, some overt news, and then we're going to talk about this RFC. And breaking news, which I didn't even manage to get onto the slides, I believe 1.16 is being branched today. So if you're eagerly awaiting 1.16, then that's good news for you. We do appreciate this has been massively delayed. There are good reasons for this. I'm hoping one of the packaging team can maybe write something up on what happened. It's pretty bizarre. It's a whole catalog of things that went wrong at the same time. So hopefully we can get you a nice write-up on that at some point. But it is happening. It is coming. It will be with you soon. So look out for the RFCs in the coming weeks. And as always, we will appreciate your help testing those. You guys are all amazingly awesome when it comes to that kind of thing. And we expect 1.16 to be no different. So with that said, I'm going to hand over to Tomer and we'll get started.
Hello everyone. So I'm just going to show you a couple of fairly minor issues that were fixed in the recent time. The first one, those of you using Chrome are probably familiar with the annoying bug on the host form, which caused autocomplete on the operating system tab to take over whenever you open one of these menus, and then it became crazy because Chrome decided to be smarter than you and try to autofill your login information on this tab. So there's a nice little fix. Let me just load it. And as usual, it's a bit slow locally, but hopefully will be faster on your production environment. Now, if you decide to do that, there's no any issue. It doesn't try to autofill anything for you. All of the top-downs work correctly with no issues. That's the first one. Second one is this issue, which has been open for about 3 years now. So if you have a long-standing issue that's open, don't despair. Maybe someday someone will actually get to implementing it. So this one has why it's not showing here. Live demos, always surprising you. Oh yeah,
Is that a deliberate typo?
No, might make sense to be on the correct branch if I want to. Second, sorry for that. Yeah. I'm going to have to reload. Good thing we don't have too much content today.
Yeah, this is a great way to use your time. I'm sure everyone's absolutely riveted to that spinner.
Yeah. Now it's just a matter of Rails recompiling the assets since they changed. And as usual,
live development, folks. Live development, live on air.
Come on. Oh, I see what happened here. Okay, so now we have a search on class. Say you want all the config groups that have something from Apache. And note to self, don't leave breakpoints inside your gems, or you will have to press continue continuously. So okay, we're going to just search for A because it's annoying. This Puppet class, this config group, sorry, has Apache in it. So as you can see, the one that was called I only have NTP, well, only has NTP. So if I clear the search, you can see it again. That's it for me.
Super. That's really nice. I don't actually know how many people use config groups. I'd be really interested to hear stories from people using that out in the field, actually, because it was it was a very contentious argument about 4 years ago whether or not we should have anything like that. So I'd love to know what people use it for now. But undoubtedly a great fix. So thank you very much, Toma. So next up, I think we are having Marek next. And we're going to be talking a few more fixes on the UX side this time.
Hello. So I'm going to show just very tiny things, though I think they're important. So this Monday, me and Sebastian, whose work I'll also show, we decided to work on the small little things that were identified when we had these dev design meetings. I'll talk about it a bit more later. So looking at the Smart Proxy page, which is the first area that we looked at, this is the old page, and you can see that there are small glitches, like, for example, failed features here. If there's no failed feature, you don't see anything in here. There's just white space in here. And also these cards in here don't follow the Parentfly recommendation because they don't have capital letters in here. So if you now look at the page, it looks like this. So in case there's no failed feature, now we at least let user know, and also the capitalization works in here. If I go back and look at other tabs, for autosign entries, we used to have these inconsistent delete buttons with a red label, and also note that new button in here, which is also now inconsistent with the rest of the application. So in new version, if you go to the same page, you can see delete buttons without red label, and label of the new button was changed to create autosign entries. So these are like small things. Each was a separate patch, but you can imagine it was just a few lines to actually finish that. Sebastian also worked on some provisioning templates improvements. So if you're familiar with that, if you open a template which is locked, there is a warning that tells you that you should need to change the associate, or if you need to modify it, you should clone it first and then update the clone. Now in the new version, if you open that editor, the new thing is that the warning is above. So it's, in my opinion, it's much nicer, and it's more conscious that you can see the warning in the top of the whole form. One more thing, if you ever cloned a template, if you try to clone a template, you usually get this screen. So you have a warning in here in top right corner that you need to revisit, review all the fields that are marked, and the name is always invalid, and you see that it has already been taken, which is slightly confusing. So what Sebastian did, if you now go and try clone a template, you get no error in here, you get no warning, and the reason is we just append a clone at the end of the name of the template. So there is no red sign or something like that, and you can just update the clone or the clone name if you want. So these were just examples of small things that can be easily improved. If you would like to join the effort, the easiest way right now is to go to the Foreman dev mailing list and search for dev/design. There are documents covering all these little items that can be fixed. If you open one, for example, this one, you can see there are items like login button changes to loading and so on. So these are small items that can be fixed, usually just one-liners. So if you're searching for some easy stuff that you can work on, you can learn how to contribute, this would be a good start. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Marek. I'll just add to that as well. These are really great ways to get involved in contributing, and we're going to be looking at ways to make it a little bit easier to find those lists. We're also going to be holding some more videos into some of the more complicated areas where these design discussions need a bit of thought, and the first of those is going to be next week. So if you're interested in the provisioning workflow and how that all goes together and how we can improve that, then please do join in for that video. That's Wednesday 30th. It's already on our YouTube page and on our calendar, I think. So look out for that and join in and be part of that discussion. But certainly in terms of making small contributions, if you're interested in trivial issues, then absolutely you can join in through these ones as well, and we'd be very glad to have you.
Yeah, if I may, just one more thing I forgot, and Sebastian just pinged me about that. He also fixed one more fix, or added one more fix. So previously, if you tried, I'm not sure, maybe here it will be visible. If you try to search in the template, pressing Ctrl+F, or depending on your browser, nothing would happen, and it would actually get 404 requests somewhere in the browser. But this was also fixed. So when you are in the template editor, you press Ctrl+F, you get this nice search box, and you can search for stuff like system here. So, last item, sorry.
Oh man, that's nice. That is such a nice fix. Lovely. See, little things, but they make such a difference, don't they? Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to some plugin news. So Adam's got some yet another demo in which we've got more remote execution updates. It just seems to keep rolling on. So Adam, what have you got for us?
So hello, what I'm gonna show you is a new feature in remote execution. I assume you...
We're not seeing your screen, or at least I'm not. I don't know if anybody else is.
Still nothing?
I can't see it either.
Well, we've got your profile picture back now, so you've obviously stopped sharing. Let's see if it'll come this time.
Does it work now? Does it?
I'm just going to give it a second. There seems to be some delay on my end. No, I'm seeing the screen share icon on your profile, but beyond that, nothing. I
so
don't know
just
what
a
we do
moment.
about it. This is why I asked you if you wanted to test it before we started.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, here we go. We're back. We got it now.
Okay, great. So here starts my real demo. I assume you all know the job invocation form. We added a new field into the advanced fields, and the field is timeout to kill. It may sound scary, but it's not. It basically says how long we allow for a job to run, but not from the time we click the submit button, but from the time it really gets started on the remote host. So here I have a script which should run for 2 minutes and echo a number every second. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it with the timeout set to 30 seconds. Now, if I go to the host's details to see the output, we can see that it is slowly ticking and adding new numbers. And basically the script is written, it should run to 120, right? But we have timeout set to 30 seconds, so it should get killed in about 8 seconds, 7, 5, 4, 3. And here we go. Timeout for execution passed, trying to stop the job. What happened here is that on the smart proxy, we reused the opened connection and killed the job running on the remote host by sending it a SIG-term signal, which is written here. And that would be about it. Questions, comments?
I think you got off by one error. It only got to 29.
Oh, well, off by one error.
But no, it's all relativity and time. You know, there's no fixed frame of time, right? So clearly you were moving faster than your server. So, I'm going to stop with the stupid physics jokes now. Right, okay. Thank you very much, Adam. I don't see any questions for you just now, so I'm going to move on. So next up, we've got Ori. So you're going to hopefully see a bit more of Ori because she's going to help me out a bit with the community stuff, which is super awesome. But right now it's a technical piece. So Ori, do you want to do your quick mention?
Yeah, this is going to be pretty quick. I'll just share my screen. So whoever doesn't know this, Fog is the gem we use to connect to all of our compute resources, actually. And they have an issue that's been open for a while about separating the providers. So each of their provider has their own gem, and all will be required by Fog, but will be each will have its separate project. So Overt, you can see, is on me, has already been accepted, and there's a first gem. There's already the gem is already in Ruby Gems, but that's the 0.0.1 version, so we'll have a new version soon. And Fog has already, there hasn't been a release of Fog yet without Overt in it, but the PR has been merged to separate Overt from that. So if anyone is working on Overt issues in Fog, please move your PRs directly to here. That's it.
Thank you very much. I'll put the links to that in the show notes, of course. I do know there's a fair number of people in the community who've been asking about the V4 support for a while, so this will be welcome news for them, I'm sure.
Right, I didn't mention that. I forgot that one. So the moving Overt out as its own provider is actually the first step towards supporting API v4 in Overt. So our plan is to continue to work on Overt now that it has its own provider, to update it more frequently, get some fixes in, and then start supporting v4. Yeah,
sorry, I did kind of jump the gun for you there a little bit, but it is really good. Breaking it out just makes sense, right? So, okay, so that's kind of the updates side of the demo. I did say we were going to have a bit of a discussion. So Shimon's been working on some ideas around auditing templates, I believe, and I think this is a point where we'd really like some feedback from people. So if this is of interest to you, I think it's mainly aimed at developers and plugin authors. So if there's anybody watching who's kind of in that arena and wants to be involved in that discussion, please do drop comments into IOC or the YouTube chat, and I'll make sure that they get read out. But for now, Shimon, why don't you do the intro?
Hey, so I was actually upgrading a Foreman instance, a production Foreman instance, and I got stuck with old custom templates, custom provisioning templates that were outdated after I have upgraded the Foreman version, and some stuff in those templates just were not working because Foreman has changed its interface towards the template. So that was the basic. That was the first thing that actually got me thinking about how can we actually audit those custom templates and look for these errors in advance. So I took an error that was quite common in the templates. It was the change from calling Foreman URL to calling it with a build parameter. It was a really small change, but it caused a lot of damage to almost any finished template that we had. So I have started to think what kind of tool can actually audit our source files, because basically template is a source file. And it led me to actually thinking of Rubocop, which does auditing for any kind of syntax appearances in your code. As a developer, it's a tool that we actually do use in Foreman. So I have tried to make Rubocop actually work for us in our templates. So that was what I was doing. So let me share my command prompt and show you how it works right now. I have created a new rake template. Can you see it?
Yep, we can see it. It's cool.
Yeah, great. So I have created a new rake task in Foreman templates, because it actually it's about templates, so I have put it there. And it's called templates validate, and I am passing it an actual ERB file that is the source of our template. When it runs, after in a minute, you should see the Robocop output. Yeah, it actually loads the whole environment. And you can see that we have in Kickstarter default ERB, which is the file that we are inspecting. We can see that we should call Foreman URL with build, but instead we got Foreman URL, and we are getting the source of the error, wget minus q, blah blah blah, Foreman URL. If we are looking into the actual file, sorry about that. Probably here it is. No, it's not. It's not the file that I was looking for. So 1 second. It should be. Yeah, we can look at the last line. We have, sorry about that. We have the Foreman URL call without the build parameter. Of course, if I change the parameter, it will run. So that was the actual demo of the feature. This is what I have tried to do. So for developers, what's in it for developers? The developers can actually write really nice and small files called Robocop rules, and those rules would be actually run against any template that the user wants to audit. So let me share my code. Hopefully you can actually read it. This is the actual task that does the work. Right now it's a POC, so I actually induce a system call to run Robocop. It should be done in some other method. As far as I know, Robocop has a rake task, so it can be invoked here directly. What else? The really interesting thing is here, Foreman Robocop cap. This is the actual file that checks for Foreman URL with build parameter. So so it's a boilerplate code, but the interesting thing is that Robocop inside it has a nice templating language for AST, which means basically for code. So it looks for a send command, which is calling a method. The method name is Foreman URL, and it's without parameters. So basically, once I've specified that I want to catch any node that has a call for Foreman URL without parameters, it would be caught by this cap. besides that, I have created a message, and that's pretty much it. So it's pretty easy to write those gaps. Everything else is kind of internal. So I've done a bit of work to actually get Rubocop to work with ERBs, and another thing which I had to actually monkey patch Rubocop target finder. It doesn't like .erb extensions otherwise. And I had to actually create another interesting workaround to remove everything from the template that is not Ruby code that should be actually run against Rubocop. So I have an ERB strip class that actually looks for everything that is an ERB Ruby pattern and strips everything, but it puts the actual Ruby code in the same place as it was in the original template. So that when Rubocop reports an offense in my modified file, I can actually use those exact indexes and show it on the original template. So if we look again at the terminal, you can see that I was actually stripping those this whole wget command, and the only thing that was in the modified file was only the Foreman URL call. But when I show the actual error, I show you the whole line from the original file, so the user can actually look at it. So that's basically the feature.
Cool. That's really cool. So I guess obviously I've got a whole ton of questions, so I'm just going to hold fire on that for a sec. That's the feature. What's the open discussion? What questions do you still need answered?
First, I want to see what would be the best way to actually use that. Rather, users want to actually do it for a single template, or they want to actually kind of dump all their templates that they have in their repository in Foreman, actually, and audit all the templates. Do we want to actually incorporate it during the save of the template and see if it doesn't contain any offenses, or even do we want to actually syntax check those templates and see if they can actually, if the Ruby syntax is okay, which is an interesting thing to do. And we can actually do that if we incorporate the strip part and we just run it against the Ruby -x, if I'm not mistaken. So just to check, to do a Ruby syntax check on them.
So I think we'll do this open mic. So if anybody who's on the Hangout wants to jump in with thoughts, please do. Ori, I see you already had some comments in IRC, and I think Marek wants to say something as well. I'm going to abuse my privilege and get the first comment, though. I think this is great. I think this is not just a feature for developers and plugin authors. I think users will want it. I literally was helping someone on IRC this morning who was having some problems with his templates. And I don't know exactly what the problem was, but by updating his templates to the latest version from community templates, his problem went away. So yes, I think users will want it. I don't have strong feelings on the rest of it, but I do feel that users should have some way to do it. Marek?
Yeah, my thoughts. I really like what I saw just now. It's very promising. One thing we will need also the COPs to be written, and probably try to enforce that as part of all the changes that are done on the community templates repo. So if there's some deprecation or some change of the style, I think it should come with the new COP for this project. But I think in general, there are two use cases in my mind right now. One is that we should be running these checks as part of pull request tests on the community templates repo. So to make sure that new changes follow the best guidelines. And the second use case, which is also, I would say, nice for user experiences, whenever, I would prefer them to be able to see warnings when they try to edit the template or try to save it, rather than doing the export. Now, I can imagine the test will take some time, so make it as a regular validation, like, this is invalid wouldn't probably make sense. Also, there might be a reason to use a specific syntax, but maybe like on-demand check in the UI would be really great. And just one more comment to the community templates repo. Now, as far as I understand, you made it part of the Foreman templates, where I think it kind of belongs to. But that also means that you need to have the Foreman installed just to run that, which would mean in our testing in community templates, we would need to install Foreman templates and do the check for every pull request. Is that correct?
Right now, it is part of Foreman templates, but I can move it. It can actually be anywhere we want. I don't see anything that is Foreman template specific that I need. So basically, we can extract it to a gem and just add the reference to it from Foreman templates. So maybe it would be the right path for us. Basically, I didn't want to put it in a gem because we still don't know how we want to use it. So once we actually decide on the best way to use it, I think then we will be able to actually put it in the right place. So maybe it would be Foreman core, maybe it would be Foreman templates, maybe it would be a different gem with a small binary that actually runs it.
I would assume that it's dependent on the version of Foreman, though, right? Because if we change something about how something's processed, like the example you showed with Foreman URL, that's locked to a particular change in Foreman core, right?
Sorry, again?
So the COPs that you want to execute on a template will need to be dependent upon the version of Foreman core, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So I think making it part of another plugin only means you end up having to update that plugin with every new version of Foreman anyway. So I would definitely agree that whilst I can see it being useful to the Foreman templates plugin, so that people could take their Git repo and run the validation offline just on a set of text files. I think that's awesome in its own right. That's a useful thing to be able to do, but it depends upon the COPs relevant to a certain version of Foreman, right? So it should be a separate thing that's part of Foreman. I'll add a comment about the UI side of things. I like the idea of validating templates in Foreman. I was going to comment on the fact that you're using one of the paths in /unattended, which obviously isn't actually used live, but it's a good place to start, I guess. But I guess you know that already.
Yeah.
It would get super annoying, I think, to see that when you're editing templates. I think I like what Marek's saying about some kind of background job might be a good use for the new notification system and an active job stuff, to be able to say, go check my templates, come back, and I'll come back and check in an hour. I think that might make some sense, but I think if you're constantly getting warned about things, it might get irritating. I don't know.
Actually, you can turn off Robocop commands using a command line in your code, in your source. So it would be something like hashtag ignore my rule, and Robocop will know that it should ignore those.
True, but even so, it depends how quick it is to parse it, right? Because if it's slow, then you can't do it live anyway.
Yeah.
At which point, your only options are to show it as some kind of output when you save it, which could, and then like if it's only warnings, do you block the save, or where do you put the output then? Like it's kind of, it's a bit.
I can imagine like we have the button for preview. There could be something like validate or check.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea actually. You could do it on demand then, couldn't you? That's
yeah,
quite
and
nice.
it will solve us the problem with the user installing Robocop and stuff like that. Robocop should be installed, would be installed with the Foreman core, and basically it would serve for any browser.
It's not bad. It's not bad. Avid makes a good point on IOC as well, saying that actually there's a use case for plugins wanting to extend this as well, right? So Rex, for example, remote execution might well want to check that their job templates are valid.
Yeah.
So presumably we'd need a way to say, okay, if a plugin defines some extra cops, then that should be included in the check.
Yeah, basically what one of my to-do items that you can actually see is make list of all caps in Robocop to add to Robocop. Right now I'm adding a specific rule file, but basically I want to include everything that is in Robocop file in Robocop folder. What I have in mind is a model that is very close to migrations in Rails. So you would just put another RB file in your Robocop folder, and the system will take it automatically to run checks against it.
Yeah, I like that. I think so. Just a quick update. Lots of positive comments on IRC. People saying they like it. So this is good. So I think on demand, I think makes a lot of sense. I think that upgrade time is interesting, because it depends how you upgrade, right?
Right.
Migration.
It doesn't it doesn't depend how you upgrade. Once you have upgraded, once you have upgraded, your templates could become irrelevant.
Yeah, I realize that. What I mean is running it in any sort of automated way depends on how the upgrade was done, right? So if you put it in the installer and someone upgrades without using the installer, then it's not going to get run. Things like this. You could do. Yeah, I don't think you can do much about that, right? I mean, the worst case scenario, the kind of lowest common denominator, is that users can always go and say, check all my templates, right? As long as we have that app, then you've got something they can do to make sure things aren't broken. I also think I'm thinking about how this looks from the developer side in terms of community templates, because the cops are specific to a version of Foreman. How are we going to run those acceptance tests on the PRs? Marek, do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, you're going to have to check which versions it works for. I'm not quite sure what I'm trying to say, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking like maybe just try to rephrase the question.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, okay, so today when you send a PR to community templates, what happens, right? Someone's going to review that, obviously. How do we decide what versions of the repo it gets merged to?
So if the cops would be part of the repo, which is branched per version, that should work. Then the question is, when we do the cherry picking, because when we merge something into the master or develop branch, and then we decide this needs to go to 115, we just usually push it there without a pull request. So
okay.
Mark,
I think
if we get the caps into, sorry about that. If we get the caps into Foreman core or Foreman core plus plugins, so the caps will be actually tied to Foreman version.
Right. This is what I'm trying to work out in my head. Is like, how do these actually get run? Because going way back in history, we used to have to check out the whole of the Foreman code base just to run tests. And we still do have to run. You have to have a whole setup just to run tests on a plugin, right? And we don't have that right now, I think, for community templates. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Right. So it's like, I don't want to slow down that testing if we can avoid it. But I think you were talking about moving this to its own kind of, I guess, gem. or its own thing. And then, okay, the cops live somewhere. Great, that's one thing. And then the actual way you execute them is something else. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, it is.
That's going to be its own gem. So that presumably means you could check that out and just use the gem as a standalone executable to run tests on a bunch of text files.
Right, it could be done. So basically, we can direct the gem or whatever executable to say, okay, look at that folder for your new cups, and
or here's some text on standard in or whatever, right? Yeah, I think that works best, right? Because then you can depend upon that gem in core and use it in the UI, and you can still use it in standalone method for community templates, for Foreman templates plugin, for whatever use case a user might have, right?
Yeah, it should be possible.
I think that makes the most sense. I mean, it's probably the most work as well, but but I think
that would make sense to me as well. And the versioning of such gem would follow basically the same rules as we have for plugins. Whenever there is a bump of Foreman version, which these cops are actually required for, you bump the version of this, and Foreman 115 would require version 1, Foreman 116 would require version 2, and the versions would contain cops. So I think that would work, and actually I like this idea.
Yeah, I think
Marek,
you could just store the cop.
Marek, I think we were talking on different things. We were talking about the engine being in a gem, but the caps themselves would be in Foreman core repository.
No, I don't think it would be in Foreman core. I think it would be in community templates, right? Because the cops are specific to a version of Foreman. They're relevant to the template and locked to a version of Foreman, right? Which is exactly what we do in community templates. So presumably you'd want them in the community templates repo, right?
And why wouldn't they be then part of this new gem? Because they are only applicable to a specific version of Foreman, but also only for the specific version of the community templates. Maybe some other plugin, could extend the list of the cops, but still, I would. Why not make it part of this new gem?
I guess I don't have a strong argument on that. I'm just trying to think about whether or not people want to write their own down, as end users might want to add their own linting to things or whatever. I don't know. I guess at the moment, it only supports ERB, right? So you can't lint the whole template anyway. You can only lint the code within the template.
Yeah.
So, and I guess there's no real way around that because you never even know what language the template might be written in, particularly for user data that's been taken arbitrary script.
I can.
So yeah, that's don't think there's much we can do about that, but at least not yet. But yeah, I don't. You have a point, Marek. I don't think there's a strong argument either way. So yeah, Ivan's just joined. Did you?
Yeah, I've joined. So I was a bit with the delay with the YouTube, so I don't know what was the last update. But I joined because I think that the rules are tied to not the templates but to the Foreman core code, as especially if we talk about deprecations of some API in the templates, and we do these changes in the Foreman core. So I would expect that the rules would be written as part of the PR that does these changes. And that's why, and I think
You've helped clarify my thoughts there, Ivan, because that was exactly what Marek was just asking, whether or not the cops would be part of. So, Marek, if I understood your question right, you were saying, would the rules be part of this new gem, and we would then release a new version of the gem for every version of Foreman?
Yes, correct.
Why? If the engine works, why would you release a new version of it just for content?
Is that an issue? I mean,
it's not, but it's more work. If the cops are just files and we already have multiple tree structures that are organized by Foreman version, that's core, that's proxy, that's some plugins, and the community templates as well. Do you really need to add to your release burden, or you just update the cops in community templates?
Right. I would say that releasing a small gem with the set of the templates is less of a burden than releasing the Foreman or getting the pull request to Foreman with new cops.
I definitely wouldn't put them in core. This is why I'm suggesting they go in community templates.
On the other hand, I totally agree with Ivan, by the way, and Shim, that they are mainly driven by the Foreman version, because usually the reason why we change it is there's a new macro available or something is deprecated.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I can see both arguments. I don't have a strong opinion here. I'm just thinking about if I've got a bunch of text files. Suppose, do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the stuff I was doing with Octo Catalog Diff at the start of the year, and the idea that okay, I'm about to upgrade Foreman, right? So I've got Foreman 1.13 sitting in my data center right now, and I'm going to do a couple of jumps up to 1.15, and of course I'm going to upgrade properly, version by version. And I want to take all my templates. So great, I've got the Foreman templates plugin. I can export them all as files and run something on that bunch of files to check what changes I need to make. Now, if I have, there's two ways you can look at that, right? What you're suggesting is I install multiple versions of the gem and call different executables on this glob of files. That's one option, totally fine. And the other is that I have a single executable and it takes an argument. I don't know whether that'd be like the version of Foreman or a directory full of cops or whatever it turns out to be, right? But we've got these cops stored somewhere else in a directory, and I just say, use these cops on these files, and the engine doesn't change. Those are the two proposals, I think. Like one of them is my proposal, one of them is your proposal. I don't really care which one wins. I just feel like that's the two ways you can do it, right? I shut everybody up. Well done.
Yeah, and I think there's still a third proposal to have these cops as part of the Foreman core repository. So
yeah, okay. I don't really care where they live. It's just a question of either they're in the gem or they're not. And then, you know, it's a question of how does it work? Because if it's part of core and you're doing it in the UI, then automatically you know what version of Foreman you're running, right? Because you're doing it in the UI. It's more about what's happening when you use this thing standalone and where does it get the cops from, and that's going to be relevant for acceptance tests into the Git repo.
I would just say one thing that just even if it was in the Foreman core repository, it doesn't need to install the whole Foreman to run it or to use it, and just checking out the Foreman or downloading the raw file from somewhere from the specific range.
That's kind of what I want to avoid. That's why I don't think the cops belong in core, just because it avoids you having to check out the whole of the source code just for that. Other than that, I think we are bike shedding a bit here.
Yeah, that's nice to think about it.
And I would like to make it even further. Sorry for derailing completely, but one idea, maybe we could start thinking about proper packaging of the templates, and the templates would be like a separate package with its own versioning and their own cops, which are always bundled with that. But anyway, sorry for derailing. I think we got to the point we all agree that this is a nice feature, and we should probably continue talking about that on the Foreman dev, so everyone who's not online right now can jump in.
Definitely. I'm just looking to see comments to see what else has been said. So yeah, so people saying much the same thing. For CI, you want something like cop gem, cop rules version go. So that's fine. I think what I said, pre-check before updating. So that's important. I think that's really important, is that ability to pre-check the templates before you update. So again, that's a workflow all of its own, but it does mean you need the cops to be not part of your code base, right? Because you haven't updated yet. So just seeing what else we've got. Talk about deprecation policies, but I think that could easily be built into the cop system regardless of where it lives. Yeah, pretty sensible stuff. So I think you're right. I think this looks good. So thank you for everyone who's taken part in that discussion. Lots going on at IRC. We can continue there just now, and no doubt a summary of that will make it onto the dev list at some point soon. I'm sure Shim will handle that for us.
Yeah.
But overall, awesome. I think anything that can make it safer for people to upgrade is a good idea. I mean, I know every year I have this conversation with at least 5 people. Like, I go to conferences and they say, "Oh, I can't update my phone. I'm too scared." It might break the whole network. So yeah, anything we can do to make that feel better is a good thing. Cool. Okay. Well, in that case, I think we're pretty much done. So I will try and make sure that links to this stuff make it onto the show notes and also to the various other things we talked about. For now, this has been an excellent community demo. Thank you to everyone for taking part. You know where to find us if you want us. Do come and tell me if you enjoyed that RFC discussion, because there's plenty more we could talk about on these community demos as and when we have time. I'm sure I can pick out relevant things for us to talk about. So if you enjoyed that, do come and tell me on IRC or Twitter or whatever, and I'll try and make sure we get more of it. For now, though, thank you very much for watching, and do take care.